Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the latest episode of the Tull and Back podcast, episode 54. I can't believe we've actually made that many. I thought maybe 10. Yeah, it is when you think about it. We're joined by Tom Griffin on today's podcast. How are you, Tom?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you, Ant?
Yeah, we're all good. We've got regular Nathaniel on as well. Nathaniel, you all right?
Hello.
Yeah, everyone's bored of seeing Nathaniel. Obviously, it's probably not going to be as positive an episode as it was last time. The 0-0 draw against Preston to talk about the bit of a travesty at Bradford. And then looking forward to Norwich, obviously on Saturday, back at home. So hopefully a bit more of a positive episode next time round. Before we get started, obviously this episode is sponsored by 6 Yards Out, where you can get all your retro memorabilia, customize your phone cases, cushion covers, things like that. Head over to their website. Get something for maybe a Father's Day present or something perfect for that. And obviously Pearson's Bar, best place to be for your post-match beers at the minute. Try and get in some more of the Supporters Trust members are coming in there as well. You know, it's becoming a bit of a place to go to chat all about City on a match day. So I was quite good. I didn't get to go down when I went to the Bristol game, but hopefully everybody's getting themselves down there. And we'll get straight into it then. So obviously the Preston game. Overall, I think if you'd have said before the season 4 points from our first 2 games would have probably been most people's target. We've achieved it. So why is there a little bit of a sense that that game was perhaps a bit negative, Nathaniel? What do we think?
Well, yeah, I guess a month ago, I probably would have wanted 6 points because of the players we'd brought in. But then after pre-season, I probably would have taken 1 or 2 points because of the way we played against Peterborough especially, and then also Leicester. Those were really poor results. So I think if the performance against Preston was a whole lot better, and if it was an exciting 1-1 or 2-2, and the new players, like the strikers especially, had played well and scored, then I think people would be much happier. But it was because really we didn't really deserve the win or the draw. Going forward, we didn't really offer anything at all. We had the lowest expected goals in the division for that weekend, which is, pretty bad. You never want to have that statistic. So, I'm happy with the 4 points, and I'm happy with probably about a quarter of the performances, because I think both halves against Preston we were a bit rubbish, and then I think the second half against Bristol City was pretty good. So hopefully we can see more like how we were in the first game, but the performance, rather than the result, was not encouraging. And if we play like that, we're not going to get a draw this week.
I think it's weird. It's weird for me because obviously I think a good sign is that if you can play badly and still manage to accrue points on the board, then it's always a good sign, because this team...
But then playing badly isn't a good sign.
No, well, it depends how often you play badly. If it's a regular thing every week, then yeah, you're not going to accrue that many points. But in them days where we go and we're perhaps, a couple of gears below where we should be, but still manage to come away with a point and a clean sheet, is quite positive majorly. But like we say, it's just the lack of attacking intent for me. Do you think maybe, Tom, this system, like obviously we all cried out for the 3 at the back last season. It gets the best out of players like Jacob Greaves. Alfie Jones is very comfortable at doing it as well, doing them like overlapping runs down the right-hand side. But is this current like variation that Shotta plays, do you think it's the system we should be playing, or would you like to see us maybe change it up a bit?
I think I do like this system, just like you said there, touched upon Jacob Greaves overlaps. I think if you play with 2 centre-backs, it's harder to get into midfield. I think you lose that with Jacob Greaves being able to drive out and Alfie Jones. You lose that sort of flexibility, whereas with 3 centre-backs, you've got that. But in terms of the midfield, I think, in previous seasons, we had more of a balanced midfield, whereas I think we're lacking in terms of a bit of height in midfield, a bit of strength. I think I'd love to stand as a holding midfield. People have said Alfie Jones can play there, but I think I'd like to see someone else come in the latter stages of the window who can sort of dominate in midfield, and then that sort of takes the emphasis away from Seri, because right now he's a bit the conductor in there, and there's not really anyone else that can do the job he does. Whereas, like, if you get a holding midfielder in there that has a bit of strength and power, I think we'll dominate games more. I think in terms of the footballing ability we've got in the squad now, we've got Tufan, Seri, Slater. They're all very good footballers, but I think we need a bit more dogged player in there that's just willing to break up play. So yeah.
A bit of bite. I mean, that's the one thing that I spoke with Gabe Sutton before the season started, and as good as the signing of Sari is and Tufan, and like in terms of creativity and creating chances, there is the worry that we're not going to get that much out of them in games where we're maybe under the cosh a bit more, because we haven't got that, like you say, number 6 role, that Richie Smallwood-esque midfielder that's going to go in there and break up play to allow them to have the license to go forwards. And I mean, I think Regan Slater did do it in bits, didn't he? Obviously, when we had him on loan in League One, he played when Smallwood got injured. Slater stepped into that role and did very well. And like we say, Alfie Jones, I think personally is better in that role than he is as a centre-back. And when you've got Sean McLaughlin, you could maybe trial that out. But I think the way that he plays at the minute, Shota, in this system, he sort of plays the midfield flat, doesn't he? They're like three, like not one's not more advanced than the other. They're kind of in a line in the middle, creating a 5 with the wing backs. And obviously Slater's more of a box to box. Tufan probably likes to stick him, in that number 10 area when we've got possession. And Sari likes to come deep and collect the ball and try and get us going forwards. But in a defensive sense, like we say, maybe it's leaving us a little bit more open, and maybe vary the system when we're away from home to maybe incorporate maybe an Alfie Jones, like we say, in that role, just to see how it goes, see if it gives us a bit more solidity and maybe a bit more fluidity on the counter, because I do think that we're a bit slow. I think the transition between the back three and then getting the ball to the forward players is a bit slow at the minute. Is that something you agree with, Nathaniel?
Yeah, I mean, I was saying it during the Bristol game the whole time, that when we got the ball from the defence to the attack, we looked quite good, but it was just the amount of time it took for that to happen, which was a problem. I mean, I think it's too early to say, because it might be. I think you're right that if we can play that badly at this point in the season and get a point, then that's still quite a positive thing. And Seri had the most chances created in the opening weekend. So, but then again against Preston, we didn't create anything. I think the strikers, they both played really badly. I was a bit surprised to see them taken off at the same time together. I thought that was a bit of a negative decision. I think we could have kept one of them on, maybe had a bit more of an outlet, but I guess they need to provide the outlet. You've got these two big strikers. They should be holding the ball up better. But yeah, attacking wise, we didn't have anything against Preston. So, did you think that was the right decision to take them off that early? Because I think Shota said he was, maybe after the game, said he might have made a mistake there.
Tom, you went, didn't you? Because from my opinion, if both of them together weren't really offering anything, then you can kind of find the justification in taking them both off in that sense. Because if they're not offering anything in the game, you need to find a new dynamic. But what was the feeling in the stands? Because I know you were there. Did you share that sentiment? Did you think it was the right substitution, or would you have kept one of them on?
No, I think when you're sort of going for a game, I think you have to keep one of them on. I was disappointed to see them both go off, to be fair. But going back to sort of what we said about that holding midfield, I think the difference between us and Preston is that they was able to get the ball forward quicker and get into these dangerous areas, in the box. And that's how they got the shots on goal. And whereas with us, I think we're just too stagnant. I mean, we'll touch on it later. I mean, the Bradford game, we saw it loads of times of passing the ball back and sideways instead of just moving it forward. And then as soon as you do that, you lose the momentum of the attack. But that's what we did well in the Bristol game. We got the ball forward. And then for some reason against Preston, we just struggled to do that. I think that may be the case of we're adapting to playing away from home, sitting back a bit more. Whereas at home, I think with a bigger crowd, I think we're able to go for it more. I think we're able to push bodies forward. It annoys me when we push forward and there's no one in the box. You've got these two, Oscar, you've got Tete, you've got two big target men. And if you're not going to give them service, they're not going to thrive. And we know that Oscar, if you put ball in the box, there's a good chance he's going to score. He's missed a couple of chances so far. He's just acclimatised in the Championship. But I think once he gets his feet on the ground, gets some service into him, I think he'll do well. But like you say, I think on Saturday against Preston, I was disappointed to see him go off. But I think that's the manager's decision. And, at least we held out for a point in the end.
I mean, with those two, we've got to play their way, because it's not like having even when we started with Estepinian and Smith, because Smith isn't going to win any balls in the box. Having those two who are, 6'4" men, Estepinian scored lots of headed goals. We've absolutely got to, get the fullbacks forward, get crosses in the box, because that's the way those two are going to want to play. and we're not really doing that. The only chance Estepinian's really had was that one-on-one chance against Bristol, but they've not had a proper headed chance yet, either of them, I think. So, I was thinking if we were playing the system that Preston did, where all they seemed to do was cross it in, or get shots off as well from outside the box, then we probably would have scored. So hopefully we get to see a little bit more of that. But I guess we're not playing with actual wingers at the moment. So maybe until we go 3-4-3 perhaps, or 4-3-3, we won't see that.
Yeah, well, because I think this season, I think we saw last season, obviously, considering it was, McCann's squad, that we maybe lacked a little in the attacking sense, that he Shotter incorporated the system to be very hard to score against. And I think what we saw from him January onwards was that we improved a lot defensively. We were very, very hard to break down, and that's continued this season. But I think we're sitting a bit too deep. I think the system, if you're going to play a 3 at the back, and you're going to push your wing backs on to try and create chances, you can't sit deep. Like my biggest criticism when I was at the Bristol game was that the back 3 was stood on the edge of our own box, passing the ball sideways. Bristol were just staying in their half and letting us do it. So You're not going to get into a position to create chances because you're doing exactly what the opposition want you to do with that amount of team. If you're playing the 3 at the back system, you can overload the midfield and the wings, whichever side you decide to go down. Because if you're pushed up on the halfway line, all of your team is in their half. And then you've got the chance to recycle possession to your back 3 who are stood on the halfway line to go to the other side. You can keep pressure on. But if we're going to teams like Preston and we're sitting really, really deep, we're inviting that pressure. We've got no outlet to get out. And then when we've got the, question marks over fitness for some of the new signings, I know injuries are having a big toll on the squad, and we're perhaps having to play players that maybe needed an extra week or 2 before they were thrown into the first team. But when you've got players who are maybe, a little bit behind the game, we've got to be finding ways to maybe be a bit more direct, play directly to their strengths. Like you say, we need to be putting balls in the box, and we seem to dawdle with it. It gets a little bit annoying when we get to a good position out wide and you can stick the ball in the box and they pass it all the way back and start again. And you're thinking, the possession style's good and everything, but there's no point in having possession for possession's sake. The opposition want you to do that. They want you've got to be sticking the ball in the box. You've got to be a bit more direct when it calls for it, especially signing people like Estepinian and Tete who are a bit more physical and want the ball.
Defenders should be scared to play against them, but at the moment they're not really being worked in that way aerially.
Yeah. Because if you look at the balance of the squad, really, we were very limited as to how we could play last season because the likes of Honeyman, was our main creative outlet. And then you've got the likes of Longman, KLP, Fleming, etc., whoever played in the wing-back positions that, could put a decent ball in, but didn't really because we didn't have that option in the box for it. But this season, you've got both Coyle, Fleming when he comes back from injury, which I also think has a big part to play in, maybe not so many balls being put in the box because we've got Aliar who's on his weak foot on that side. But when you've got these players, you can either whip the ball in or you've got like your more incisive breaking the backline pass player like Ozan Tufan or Sari who can play a cheeky ball. We've got variation to where we can play and be dangerous all over the pitch. So it's probably just a matter of waiting for players to get up to speed with the game, like we say, acclimatise to this league and get used to the physical demands of it. But I think the most frustrating thing is obviously at the minute that we're not really looking dangerous in attacks, barring the second half against Bristol City. We've looked quite poor, even towards the end of the pre-season. We just look like we're stagnating the ball in the middle of the park and not really creating anything. And it's probably frustrating for the strikers, and it's just how we change that, I suppose. Do we think we've seen our strongest 11 then, Tom, or do you think there's still a few players to come back into this?
I think in the Bristol game, I thought if you put Fleming in there instead of Alia and then switch Alia up front for Smith, I think that's close to our strongest 11. I think if you draft Cynic into things, see how he plays. I mean, it's hard to tell so far because of a few of our signings. You've got Traore, who's not even been announced yet. He could have changed things. And Cynic, we don't know what to expect from Cynic yet either. So I think with the current system we're playing, 3 at the back with 3 midfield as well, I think the squad that we saw against Bristol was close to our first 11. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think they're saying out there that they're expecting another 3 signings. I think Pelkas is the one who's being mentioned as well. And
I love him. He would have that. Well, I would love if we signed him because he seems to have that, creativity that we seem to be needing at the moment.
Can't admit I know anything about him, to be fair. I've not known much about most of the signings that we've made, and I'm not going to.
It looks good on YouTube, so that's me sold.
Well, yeah, the old YouTube videos, everyone looks like Ronaldo, don't they? Until they come. Got our first comment of the day. Wacker, lucky to come away with a point. Yes, I agree, but I think, like we say, it's the fact that we did come away with a point and a clean sheet, which is, considering we've got another 3 or 4 gears to step up, I think is obviously a good sign. Like we say, maybe try play a bit more progressively, try and probe a bit more and ask a few more questions, especially away from home. See where we go. We'll move on to the Bradford game then. Did you go to that one, Tom?
Yeah, I went to the Bradford game. Yeah, unfortunately, I did.
Want to give us a basic summary if you're feeling up to it?
Well, am I allowed to swear on this?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It was fucking shit.
Yeah, you can fill in for Will.
It was shite. That's it. You were lucky to watch it on TV. I think it was just so frustrating. We saw analysis on Twitter. I think you follow him, JP Page. I think he does the analysis from Opta. Yeah, he analysed the game, and there's so many times in the clips that he showed that we just pass the ball backwards and sideways too much. You get into a promising position in midfield with like Cannon, Wilkes, and they'll just go back, and you just lose the momentum. First 15 minutes, we started off quite strongly, and then just after that, I just capitulated. There was that spell before half time where they just got 2 quick fire goals, and then we had no answer for them. And considering quite a few of our first team players are playing in that match, it's quite concerning. The likes of Oscar came on and we didn't feed him, and then Teta obviously came on and played out wide. And we saw it years ago with the likes of Al Mohammed, who used to just be like a wide player. We'd knock the ball up to him, he'd wing the knock-ons, and we'd create so much from that. And not wanted
like Irvine as well, I think.
Yeah, Irvine as well. Literally, what you're not wanted, we kick it up to Teta to knock down. Look, you're struggling in a game. Surely we should have just gone direct or 2 tall strikers.
I thought that was why he was on the wing. I thought that the reason it would be because it's easier for him to, win a header in that position against a fullback, perhaps. But then they just didn't do that. Yeah, it was ridiculous because you want him in the box, really, don't you? You don't want him on the wing, so that was a really strange one.
The thing is, what happened was we was against a League 2 team, and what they did was they spoiled it. They're not a good footballing side, and when you play against a team like that, you've got to inject your own impetus on the game. You've got the more quality players like a Tufan. You've got forward players like Oscar, and your fullbacks that are meant to go up and down and provide a bit of quality, but not once to provide that quality. And we got into positions where we could have crossed. We didn't. We got into shooting positions in the box. We'd take a pass out wide. All these things culminated into that loss, and it's quite concerning when you play against Bradford and you lose. But it's one of them where if you don't sort of stamp your authority on a cup tie early on, the hosts are obviously going, even though we went 1-0 up, the hosts are going to sort of get encouraged by how we're playing. And then that's how they scored the 2 goals. And we had no reply to them, which is quite concerning, really.
It was the same with Peterborough. We just crumbled in like a 5-minute spell. We conceded 2 goals. So that's, really not helpful when you concede 1 and rather than being able to get to half time, you go and concede another one. Because I think the 2 away performances we've had, and then Peterborough, that was away. I'm hoping that it's not going to be like that with the home crowd on Saturday. Hopefully that'll push them on a bit. But I guess last season we were so good away from home, nicking those late winners. So maybe they were hoping to do that against Preston. But against Bradford, you've got to be stamping your authority on it. And I thought we would be able to do that when we scored, because that was a good move, actually, looking back at it. A bit of misfortune and also fortune with the own goal, but then the great save. I think Shotta was right to be very disappointed with that again in the press conference afterwards.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem is, obviously, we know from cup ties, if you're playing against a team that is in a lower league than you and don't possess the same footballing quality in terms of, let's combine, Tufan compared to one of their centre midfielders, they're going to want to drag you down to the standard of play that they want to. They want to make you feel uncomfortable. They want to make you feel as though you've got no time on the ball. And I thought very, very comfortably, like we said, the first 15, 20 minutes of the game, we sort of just passed them off the park. We had something like 70, 71% of the ball. Couldn't get anywhere near us. And that sort of superiority, that complex that our players had, they passed it around with such confidence. We looked dangerous, but didn't really ask that many questions in terms of chances. We had all the ball, but they probably had the better chances on the counter. And it wasn't until obviously Tufan, which was very, very similar to the chance he had against Bristol. I recognise was that shot. Yeah. Until he did that, there wasn't really much that we did in terms of having shots on goal, especially, which is the worry for me. If you're playing against a team that's a couple of leagues below you, you should be creating a lot of chances, in my opinion.
If you miss them, that's a different thing, but you've got to at least create them.
You've got to be testing the goalkeeper. You've got to be asking questions of him regularly, and I don't think we did that. And it just all comes back to that, possession for possession's sake. If we're just passing the ball around the back and the middle needlessly and not doing anything, and that's not even going to benefit us, is it? Because I just want to see us be a bit more direct, maybe change it up a bit. I don't know if Shotter's been told to, try and incorporate a more possession-based style of play, but with the players that we've got, we just need the ball up in their half and the rest will happen. Because at the minute, we're just we're getting into decent positions. And like Tom said, we're turning around and passing it back. And, maybe Andy Cannon, I thought worked really hard. But his distribution was quite poor. A couple of breakaways, where he slowed it down. And he
wasn't our worst player, but he was
not our worst player. I don't think
it was dire at times. The ambition and the determination, the energy was there, but he just hasn't got the quality to back it up. I think with his passing. And then the less said about Wilkes, the better.
I was gonna say,
bring back Wilkes' corner from last season. Let's have a moan about Malik Wilkes for 5 minutes, shall we?
We've not had a good rant about Malik Wilkes on this podcast in a while because he's not played. I'll ask Tom because he's an independent.
It's a new idea.
Malik Wilkes obviously is being pursued by Sheffield Wednesday. We know the talent he had. He scored 20 odd goals in League One. We know how good he can.
There's a player in there. That's what we always said.
There's a player in there, but we're just not seeing it. What are your thoughts on Wilkes? Do you want to keep him in the side? Would you rather see him gone?
I think I did want to give him a second chance, but on the basis of that cup performance, to me it looks like he's put on a bit of weight. I think you look at him scaring up a guy, scaring up the opposition, and he's just too big to get past. I don't know. It's just
when we say there's a player in him, it looks like if he's eaten one. Yeah.
So I mean, he squares up a player, and you just know he's not going to get past. He's meant to be a winger, and he's built like an NFL player. You know what I mean?
And his first touch was dreadful. You let the ball go out of play. So I think I'm retracting my previous statements. I don't think there's a player in there anymore. Sell him to Sheffield Wednesday. League One is his level.
Is it maybe a case of that he maybe just doesn't want to be here, and because to me,
why would you be? He's not going to play much, is he?
No, but he could. That's your attitude, isn't it? A player will then either decide when they see a situation like this to, fight for their place in this. Like Greg Docherty, who came out in summer and said, we've made a lot of midfield signings, but I'm going to try and nail down a starting position this season. Or are you going to go the route of Malik Wilkes and just be like, I'm not that bothered. Someone else will sign me. It is frustrating because, like we say, we know how good he can be. We've seen it, and then the stockiness thing started last season, didn't it? We all mentioned about how he'd sort of changed his build at the beginning of last season, changed his playing style, where he was a bit maybe quicker, pacier, facing the goal, trying to take his player on, cutting inside, having chances. But now he plays with his back to goal and tries to almost play as a hold-up player, and that's not his style. And
doesn't do it successfully, does he really?
No, he doesn't do it successfully. He's regressed. Yeah, he has regressed, and I think that's why we're not seeing the best version of him, because he's trying to be a player that he's not, and he just needs to, go back to what he did best and start, being that dangerous player out wide that's always looking to ask questions of his fullback and getting behind, rather than playing with his back to goal and playing it backwards. And like we say, when you haven't got the close ball, the first touch that Malik Wilkes has got, where it's almost a trampoline on his left foot. Then
if he was in the box with those touches, he would have scored a hat-trick.
Yeah, there'd been good shots, wouldn't they? If anyone, obviously this episode is live, so if anyone is watching and you've got your thoughts on Malik Wilkes, because I think as a fan base, I'm quite interested to see where everybody's heads are at with Wilkes. Do comment and say. We've got one in there.
A comment.
Yeah.
Gabe
Terrible
Ramirez
attitude.
says, terrible attitude. I hope he's talking about Wilkes and not one of us.
It could.
What I want to
Ian
say about
Templeman
Wilkes
as
is
well.
that it's disappointing seeing how he's turned to now. I think you saw him in League One, the instinctive finishing. I mean, you see that hat trick against Wigan. It's just disappointing to see the downfall. I think if you got rid of the attitude, we've seen it time and time again in the past with the likes of other players. Hatton Ben Arthur, the attitude get in the way of his ability, and that's what Wilkes is doing. I mean, he's still only 23, so he's still got time to turn it around. But I see his future being elsewhere, away from City. I think with the direction we're taking, the signings we're making, I think he's, that Bradford game was a real chance for him to, show that he's capable of breaking into this Championship squad. But I think he's only done the opposite and just shown, oh look, he's a League One standard player now, and that's just the sort of direction he took. I mean, when we first signed him, he was one of the shining lights in that relegation. Towards the end of the season, he scored, that vital goal he scored against Middlesbrough gave us hope. I think he scored like 5 goals in about 17 games. I mean, it's not the most impressive record, but out of the rest of the squad, I think he was one of the standouts. And it's just disappointing to see that he's not really pushed on from that, apart from obviously in League One. But
it's thing as well, because like the Barnsley fans didn't like him, and they were all saying stuff about his attitude stinks and whatever. And then he played a blinder for us, like you said, towards the end of that season, and in League One, and we're all wondering, maybe he just wasn't a fit at that club. But then now we're starting to see what maybe they saw, and it's worrying because like we say, he's 23, time is on his side, but he's at a point now where he should really be establishing himself in a team and being a regular. You don't want to be jumping clubs every 2-3 years. You see it with the likes of Ben Woodburn at the minute is a good example to use. Nathaniel's favourite player. He's only 21, 22, but he's been at so many clubs, and that huge potential that they have, kind of like you never really see it. Trying to think of a recent one for us. Cameron Stewart was similar. He had that burst out, didn't he, under Nick Barmby, and then you never saw out of him again. These very technically gifted players, I think, just thrive off. It's all confidence. I know most players' performance levels of confidence, especially when you're an attacking player. But if you have the correct attitude, your form always comes back. But with Wilkes, it's not going to come back unless he really knuckles down and works at it. And whether that be here or somebody else, I personally think it's going to be elsewhere, especially if we're looking at bringing in 2 or 3 more players. You can't be shifting performances like that against lower league opposition and expecting to stay and fight for your players. If we're bringing in wide players, especially like Pelkas and Randell Williams can play there if needs be. And, if the price is right, obviously, I'd let him go personally, but it's just a waste, isn't it? It's a frustrating waste.
It's so
going back to the Bradford game, I've got a question for you both, right? So obviously Mark Hughes is in Bradford's dugout. How much of an impact do you think it is that Mark Hughes managing Bradford? Like, how much of an impact do you think he had on that game compared to Shotter? Look, we've seen Mark Hughes manage at the very top, manage Man City, Blackburn in the past. And I think the difference in quality between the two managers showed on that game. I think not necessarily quality of manager, but I think Mark Hughes' knowledge of the lower leagues, Mark Hughes' knowledge of English football. I think that was the difference in the end. I think they went 1-0 down. They could have easily capitulated, but they managed to come back. And obviously, Mark Hughes managed.
It's his first
cup action.
Cup game, exactly. So of course, Mark Hughes is going to know more than him. He's won 3 League Cups as a player. That was a stat they showed. I think he got the game plan right, and Shotter didn't really. And then he looked very disappointed talking to Aliar after the game. And I mean, hopefully, after this week especially, the players know like what their levels are. You have to be better than this going forward for the rest of the season. Because although that was a bad result, it is still very early. And I think we at this stage of the season, after these sorts of results, we like to say give them 10 games at least to see where we are. And we'll definitely need that for the fitness and the injuries alone. But hopefully, of course, if we play like that after 10 games, then we know that it's a bigger issue. But hopefully it is just the sort of thing we were thinking about before the season started, that they'll need time to bed in. But we can still believe that or not at this stage because we don't know yet.
Yeah, it's a good question, that, Tom. I think, yes, definitely, because To be successful, I think in the English leagues, you have to have a diverse tactical range about you. You have to be able to get the best out of the players that you've got at your disposal. Steve Bruce was very good at that with us, and that's why we enjoyed so many successful years under him.
McCann wasn't. He had no plan B, did he?
No, but and the biggest criticism I ever had for McCann was that, yes, okay, in the first season especially, he lost his best two players. Fair play, yeah, that's a valid point. But you have to then change the system. You have to change the way you're approaching games, the personnel, where we're choosing to attack. You've got to exploit your own team's strengths in that absence, find a new way to score goals. I don't think we did that. We tried to play the exact same way, even though we didn't have them. And then that's why we couldn't score goals and we just dropped down the league like a stone. League One, we saw a bit more variation in McCann. You know, he played a bit different. We were more successful, obviously winning the title, very good season. But then in the Championship, you know, it wasn't until injuries imposed on the squad that forced him to change that 3 at the back system, and we found a bit more success. And it's like you want to see that proactiveness about a manager, not reactive. In my opinion, what makes a good manager is knowing when to change and what to change. And I think the only criticism I've got for Shota at the minute is that, you know, late on the game when it's not working for us, substitutions wise, like we say, approach wise, you know, changing the tempo, changing the directness of the passing, it either comes too late or it doesn't happen, and the substitutions are a little
late,
bizarre. Yeah, and I just think that, like, you know, it's easy to forget he didn't come into English football till January, so we're gonna, I think, see a lot of these games where he's gonna lack in a tactical sense. Especially in cup games like at Bradford, lower league opposition, that's an entirely new experience for him, which he will have learnt from. And when it comes down to the FA Cup time, we'll probably see, you know, maybe a bit more of a serious approach to a cup game and a bit of different attitude. But it's all stuff that he's got to learn. Like, he's got 6 months now in the bag for a Championship manager experience. But like we say, in the cup, it was brand new. He's come up against a very experienced Ted who saw our weaknesses, knew his own team's strengths, and used that to his advantage. Like the set pieces to defending, we were very, very schoolboy. We were very switched off, not concentrated, perhaps a little nonchalant about the way we were going without, you know, maybe the we're 2 leagues higher than you kind of complacency crept in, and they didn't feel as though they needed to focus as high, which is never a good sign. But yeah, no, that's a very valid point, and I think that's probably the reason we churned out such a poor performance in the end. But do we have a criticism then, Nathaniel? Do we think we should have maybe played? Because I know a few people, I put my predicted team out, and not having Tete and Estepinian up top, for example, was, you know, we need to play him. They need to get some more minutes under the belt and get a bit more match sharp. Do we think there's maybe a bit of he should have done that, played more towards our first team to get, you know, that then partnerships built, that momentum going?
Yeah, I thought that it would have been the perfect opportunity, really. Maybe not the whole game, or maybe just the first half or the whole of the second half, maybe. I wasn't too convinced. I mean, he's been good in pre-season, but I wasn't too convinced by Coville, because that was, you know, his like 6th or something game ever in his professional career. And I would have thought that, even though he's, you know, a highly rated young player, I wouldn't necessarily think... Surely it's more important to give one of the strikers, you know, more minutes than him, because Coville was brought in as an academy player. He was only really playing because of the injuries, and hopefully towards the end of the, you know, when the players are all back, he's going to be way down in the pecking order, you would have thought. But I do want to mention, you know, as a nice sort of more positive thing, 9 Championship teams played lower league opposition on the Tuesday. They all lost, and then another 2 lost on the Wednesday games. So even though we didn't play well, and maybe the other teams performed poorly as well, we're only as bad as 11 other teams in our league. So that's something we can hold on to, and maybe it's delusional, but, you know, we're only as bad as them. Yeah. So I think a lot of teams are sort of unprepared still because of the pre-season being a week early, because a week is, you know, that's a big deal in football, really. So maybe it will still take time to get better, but hopefully we do play a whole lot better immediately on Saturday, because, you know, we don't want it to become a trend.
Are we? I mean, cup competitions as a Championship club is a weird one, isn't it? Because it's very rare. Every now and again, you get one side that seems to do very well and go quite far, but realistically, not going to win it. So there's always that we can focus on the league kind of attitude thing. And like you say, that stat about all these championship clubs losing to lower league opposition where, the money for progressing is a bit more of an incentive because it doesn't really...
Yeah.
Championship's in that weird area, in it, where the money isn't big enough to be an incentive to continue through the competition, but you're also not going to win it. So it's kind of like an extra game.
I think
so that's why...
Maybe we should be in the, League One, League Two, and the Championship should have the, the Papa John's Trophy, maybe. Because surely Championship teams would care more about that, perhaps, because we don't really have a huge amount of chance in the other ones to progress further.
I don't think League One teams care about the Papa John's
really,
Trophy.
Yeah, I guess really any
it's
cup.
Unnecessary trophy.
Yeah, I guess any cup to a Championship team is unnecessary because, as you said, not going to really care about the money you get from it, and you're not really going to win it.
I'd perhaps say that the Carabao Cup, being the League Cup, should perhaps just be for every team outside the Premier League, and then the Premier League can be in the FA Cup one because they have the Community Shield in Europe, and that's competing as well. So the Premier League teams would probably like not having to have the extra games of the Carabao Cup.
They all complain about it, and they all play they all make 11 changes, don't they?
Yeah. So perhaps have that as just like literally the Football League, and then the Premier League can join in the FA Cup and etc. And
good idea, Ant. We're solving all of football's issues tonight.
Yeah. I'll put my number on the tweet, EFL. You can get in touch in the morning. We'll discuss what we can do with that cup competition. Are you wounded that we've gone out the cup then, Tom, or are you quite happy for us to just be able to just focus on the league?
I mean, I'd like a cup run, but I think Championship's the first and
who would Bradford have played?
Blackburn. Blackburn. So Blackburn at home as well, so it's not really
the Shambles derby.
Yeah.
He scored as well, I think, in the cup, did Dak. But they've signed Smodix, haven't they? So I think he's going to have a bit of a lesser part to play this season. Just got a comment from...
Could have got him.
Gabe Ramirez said, not being able to see every game live in the USA, how do you feel about Richie Smallwood? Pretty sad to have our last captain come back and captain a League Two team and beat us. Yeah, he did just about everything but scored, didn't he, Smallwood? I think he did have a good game. Smallwood's one of these, isn't he? Like I've said before, Ian Ashby was very similar when he was here. The amount of people that used to phone in on BBC Radio Humberside after a game and criticise Ian Ashby was amazing. And then you think about, every single City fan now heralds him as a legend and has now but good words to say about him. Smallwood's similar. I think he was definitely one of our best performers last season. Does the ugly side of the game, wins the ball back, allows the more creative players like Honeyman to do something with the ball. Something that I think we're desperately missing this season. I wouldn't have been upset if we kept Smallwood to do that role again. If the option is there to obviously sign a higher caliber of player to do that role, then absolutely we need to be going for that. But I do think that, Smallwood dropping to League Two was definitely a surprise. I definitely felt he was going to go to League One or a Rotherham, somebody like that. Very, very big coup for Bradford. I think he'll do very well in that league. What were your thoughts on Smallwood then, Tom? Because I know we've spoke about him quite a bit on the podcast last season. He was a very divisive topic in Hull City Twitter. But what was your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I really liked him as a player. He got stuck in. He did the dog, the hard work, the dogged displays that we're sort of missing from this team currently. I think he was sort of an underrated figure in the team. I mean, there was times where, look, you saw him, make a stray pass from 6 yards and stuff like that. But that's not really his game. We knew that his game was just breaking up play and keeping it simple. And, when he sometimes attempted them 30-yard passes, he wouldn't execute them. But that's, why we brought in the likes of Seri now, because that's an improvement. I mean, we've lost like Honeyman, who was a very important figure last season. Keane Lewis-Potter was a very important figure. And some of Smallwood's attributes were very important, like his leadership and his ability to break up play. So there's 3 important players that we've lost. And we've not, in my opinion, we've not really replaced them. Yes, we replaced other areas of the squad. You brought in like Seri, you brought in Figueiredo, who was actually a very important figure at the back. But we've not replaced them fully. Like Keane Lewis-Potter's goals. Do you think anyone in the squad this season is going to eclipse 12 goals?
Longman.
I'd have liked to imagine that Estepinian, when fully fit, will be around the 10-15 goal mark.
He should.
Aliar seems to be the rare bright light at the minute in an attacking sense, despite playing in left.
No end product.
I think if he gets a solid run of games as part of a front two, I think he might start picking up a few goals and go on a bit of a run.
Can we just clone him? Have him up front and then have him at left back as well? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, have two of them. Yeah, but I think I do think that Brandon Fleming's absence is having a big impact on the squad at the minute, because I do think that we're missing how,
balance is really.
No, with him being a left foot, if you're playing wing backs, I think it is important to have your natural footers on that side so they can put the ball in the box. Because if they want to cut inside, you've got your midfielders there for them to give the ball to anyway. I know we kind of found success in this with Longman and KLP cutting inside, but that was more of a surprise, I think, because we obviously were playing the 4-3-3 every week. We caught teams off guard. And then later on in the season, Longman especially, performances dropped quite a bit because teams found him out. And, Randell Williams, similar against Bradford, they knew he was always going to cut in on his left. And when they know that and they can predict you every time, you kind of get forced out of the game, really. And Brandon Fleming's ability to sort of be that dynamic up and down the wing, defense and attack contribution, putting the ball in the box, along with Coyle, who's been putting some very good crosses in at the minute. I think we'll start to see a bit more chances being created, especially with Aliar up top. I think Aliar and Estepinion's probably going to be our first choice front two, I would imagine. But yeah, I do agree that we've not really replaced.
We'll be playing 3-4-3 though. I think that's another debate, or 4-3-3. Because I think Aliar and Cynic have been brought in to play as wingers, and you're not going to drop one of them, I would have thought. So, I still don't even think we're playing the formation we will be. But either one has issues, because the 3-4-3, allegedly, the midfield two in that will surely be Seri and Tufan. And then is that good enough defensively without Slater? So either one. I sort of agree with that. Obviously, I'm not trying to be too clever that if someone doesn't score more than 12 goals, that's what Gabe Ramirez has said. But we did get promoted in 2013 with top score of 9. So it just depends. If they all chip in, we'll be fine. But and hopefully that'll be the case, because we were reliant on Lewis Potter. But one of the strikers better score soon, otherwise I'll be booking it.
I do disagree with the Aliar point. I think we brought him in, obviously, in the January transfer window, and he played up front with Keno. I think if he was going to be a winger, Charlie would have switched. But I do see your point. He can play in that out wide, but I think essentially, that's where he's going to be most dangerous. We've seen it. He's got a cross ability from wing back, and what does that say about Callum Elder, where we're playing a striker at left wing back instead of him? It says quite a lot. And then even on Tuesday night, Callum Elder, he was one of our poorer players. I mean, how many times is he getting a crossing position? Not once pick out a play. I mean, but you can forgive him for not getting an assist, but surely when you're crossing a ball, at least beat the first man, or at least not just cross it out of a player. It's just very frustrating, considering, in the League One season, he got 7 assists, and, you thought, look, he got a bit more crossing ability in that, but clearly not. And obviously a lot of people don't like Callum Elder. I mean, I'd put myself in that list as well, to be fair, but I'm not someone that wants him to die. Do you know what I mean?
Hopefully no one wants him to die.
That's a bit much.
But it's also not beyond the realms of Hull City Twitter, is it? But let's. I think that because I was going to obviously try and ask you guys about Jacob Greaves' situation as well. So I think this kind of ties into what, losing Honeyman and KLP. I think. I don't think the club expected. I think they probably knew that they were going to struggle to hold on to KLP, especially. But the Honeyman one, I think, caught them off guard. Because I think that the signings that we've made midfield-wise look as though they were meant to be in addition to Honeyman. There's a very big George Honeyman-shaped hole in the middle, I think, that we've yet to plug. And the KLP one, I think realistically, Adjan always knew he was going to lose him, which is why the likes of Pelkas, Cynic, people like that were signed, because they're obviously hopefully they'll be as good, but I don't think. No, but he's after Pelkas.
Allegedly,
he's after Pelkas. But and then you've got the Jacob Greaves situation where he's apparently turned down. How many offers have we given him? 2 or 3?
At least 2, isn't it?
Yeah, but he's got the option, obviously, of a year, the extension that we can put on if needs be, which realistically gives us the rest of the season to sort out his contract dispute before I think we have to worry about losing him. I personally can't see Middlesbrough convincing him to leave us in the situation that we're in. I know that they've got a lot of money from the Tavernier and Jed Spence sales. Yeah. that they could probably offer us, but realistically, we don't know what their finances like in terms of, you know, is that money just going to put them back in the clear, or do they have, you know, that breathing space to really offer us? Because I think, you know, young English 21, natural ball playing, left-footed centre back is going to be absolutely gold dust. It
shouldn't be any less than 10 million, and I don't think a Championship team that without parachute payments, even if they have sold these players, because they sold Tavernier for 10 million or something, wasn't it? So they're not going to be spending Premier League money on a Championship player, I don't think. The only chance would be if he goes to you know, promote a Premier League team, I think.
Yeah, because I think that with the majority of Premier League, well, the majority of football, to be fair, Premier League and Championship have tended to go down that, you know, more possession-based style of play. And Jacob Greaves, especially being a natural left-footed centre-back, Premier League clubs are going to have been watching him very closely this season, and we'll probably get a huge offer for him in summer if we're not anywhere near promotion, kind of thing. That would be silly to get rid of him to another Championship club right now when we've only just really started, you know, this Adjun project. And you know, the English tax always adds about 5-10 million on a player, doesn't it? Let's be honest. So hopefully, you know, they get it sorted by the end of this transfer window. But if not, we definitely have the rest of the season, I think, to sort his contract out. Do you think we can afford to lose Greaves, Tom, or do you think it's something that we absolutely need to be, you know, sorting out as quick as possible?
Well, we can't afford to lose him in the current predicament anyway. I think if you had a replacement lined up for him, who was a sort of similar mould to Greaves and maybe English, young, similar to him, that we could bring in for a fee, then it wouldn't be a huge loss. But I think currently we've got 4 fit centre backs, senior centre backs anyway. We can ill afford to lose him.
We need to sign one already.
We've seen how it can impact the club before. I think Keanu's Potter's contract saga a couple of years ago was in League One. That boiled down for months and months, and that impacted our performances on the field. And then it wasn't until Keanu's contract was sort of agreed that he started scoring goals, and we sort of went on this very long unbeaten run in League One that obviously got us the title. So I think we can ill afford to let the contract situation affect our performances. That's why I'd like to see it resolved very soon. But I don't think it's an option selling him in this window. I think, you know, we're going to do the year extension, but I think we've got to sort the contracts out, and that's where we've obviously failed in the past with other players not signing them down, and that's what I hope would change under Adjun. But I think it's important that we get it done. You know, a deal either way.
I raised the issue in our group chat that the contract situation with players tends to be coming up quite often. The Honeyman, all he said since he's joined Millwall was the offers that he got weren't good enough. Contracts to KLP obviously turned them. I know his agent probably had a big bit to do with what KLP did, but similar instances, we deals and he chose to go elsewhere. And now Jacob Greaves is turning down contract offers. Do we think that there's the possibility that, obviously, and being new to owning a club, that he's kind of, you know, not really getting the financial side of the contracts and the transfers and stuff, and he's prioritizing perhaps your Cerise and your two fans, giving them big money contracts, and then turning around to Jacob Greaves and only giving him, like, you know, a small increase when realistically he probably deserves to be on similar money to them. Is that perhaps a worry, Nathaniel? Do you agree, or am I being a bit too? Am I going too deep?
Well, I mean, if Greaves leaves, then yeah, I think we can at least say that with Honeyman and Greaves going, then that would be, you know, a really big issue. But then maybe because we had brought in Traore, and when they were doing the Honeyman contract negotiations, I think it was probably that Traore was probably going to play alongside, well, not alongside, but they're the same position, so they wouldn't be playing together. Honeyman would probably be lower down the pecking order than Traore, possibly. So maybe he wanted more game time. But yeah, it's an odd one because you would think that, yes, you can bring in these new players, but, you know, any idiot could work out that if you bring in Tufan on 20 grand a week, Honeyman, who, you know, maybe isn't quite as good, will want a significant increase because otherwise it's not fair. And I did think this might happen because quality isn't really consistent throughout the squad, but, you know, the contracts sort of have to be respectable to your, teammates. So yeah, but if Greaves can sign one, then I think maybe That's just a sort of one player we didn't expect to go who's gone, so it's not a big deal. But I don't necessarily think he will go, and at least he won't be leaving for free at the end of the season, perhaps. So it's a really difficult one. I hope he signs one. But yeah, it's just how the transfer market is now. If you're a young English player, especially, or at least just have had a great season in the Championship, just one, even though Greaves was great, but he wasn't the best defender in the league because we still conceded a lot of goals. So, but if you just have the one good season, you're immediately looking at getting a big move because Premier League teams can't afford to sign quality players from the Premier League anymore. They have to sign these younger players from the Championship and hope, like Brewster and other players like that, Lewis Potter, Bowen, that sort of thing.
One issue I had was like before the transfer window was how signing these players were linked with like the two-fan series would impact the morale of the squad. You touched on it there in terms of the wages. What I thought was when an earner comes in, you can't just suddenly just change the wage structure just for a couple of players because that in itself upsets the balance of the squad. I think. I mean, yeah. I know Football Manager's not like real life, but if you start signing these big players on Football Manager, you've got players coming to the board saying, "Oh look, they're not happy with the money they want" and stuff like that. And I think when it's an unbalanced wage structure, I think you can see why Honeyman's left because he feels the part he played last season, it was crucial to his staying up, and he felt that he warranted a new contract. And I heard that I think he took 15,000 a week at Millwall. So if we're not offering him that, but we're offering like a two-fan 20k plus, you can see why he's annoyed. And perhaps that is the reason why Jacob Greaves is thinking about leaving because he feels he's watched one of his teammates go,
feels undervalued.
Get more money elsewhere, and he knows that the value that look, I can go play for a club that finished higher up last season. I know he wouldn't go Borough, but for instance, that's maybe in his thinking. But it's that situation where the squad morale is important, and perhaps Adrian and Shotter haven't really taken that into account. Where like thinking, oh yeah, it's going to slip under the radar that we're giving Seri and Tufan and these other players big money, and we're able to just sort of keep our other players happy. The likes of Doherty and Greaves and stuff like that. But I think it shows that it can have a negative impact. So hopefully that's not the case, but it could be a reason in terms of why Greaves is rejecting offers supposedly.
Yeah, no, I think it's easy to forget in it that footballers, it's their job, it's their occupation. If you say you work your job for 3-4 years, you've been one of the best employees, and then they bring in 3 or 4 new people on a higher wage than you'd quite likely be going up to your manager's office when you're saying, "How come I'm not getting a pay rise?" It's a similar thing. Like if you feel underappreciated, you're quite justifiably maybe a little bit miffed off that these other players who really haven't contributed that much have come in and getting paid more than you. And hopefully Greaves gets the money that he deserves. I think I forgot to mention some of Will's comments on each of the topics, but all Will said on Jacob Greaves is pay Greaves the damn money he wants. So, it is a case of the lad's gifted. He's got a legacy, obviously, with Mark Greaves being a football player as well, and for us. And it's just... He's steadily improved every season. He was at loan in League 2, and then he played for us in League 1. He's played for us in the Championship, and he's got better every year. And if he carries on at that trajectory, he's going to end up being a Premier League footballer, and we'll get a big sum of money for him. So the investment in him in this contract, to me, would only make sense because you're only going to get that money back and more if we end up selling him in the future, if we're not already in the Premier League ourselves. So it's a worthy investment that the club really should be trying to nail down as a priority before the end of the window, definitely, because the speculation, like Tom said, is just going to, disrupt maybe any momentum that, maybe tearing his head and maybe his agent starts pecking in his ear. And the last thing we want is somebody as consistent as Greaves to, maybe have his head turned and his performance drop below his usual 7 or 8 every week. So hopefully it's resolved quite soon. We'll move on to the Norwich game then, because we've talked a bit. Actually, we'll talk about this one comment first. FFP, did you guys listen to Adrian on TalkSport? Because I didn't.
Oh, I meant to.
No, I didn't, to be honest.
because I believe he spoke about the FFP and where we stand. I'm
it's great we have the information then, and that we all listen to it.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. I do remember a tweet, I think, saying that he said that we were quite close to being as far as we can be in terms of spending.
But I don't understand that, because I mean, we aren't over it at all, are we? We are not spending more than we have. But other teams do that all the time. Then they have huge losses, and they still get away with spending the money. Like, they're in trouble later. So
FFP, I think, works. I'm not going to pretend I know the ins and outs of it. As far as I'm aware, FFP works. Is it over a 3-year period? So if the end of that 3-year period is this season, it becomes under your profits. You're not allowed to make a loss of more than X amount over this period of time. And I think what's kind of gone under the radar is the amount of money we've paid for each of the players. I know that we're spending about 3 or 4 million, I think, on each of them, aren't we? So if you take it into account
10 or 12.
The bigger wages of Sari, and I know we sold KLP for 16 million, so that kind of nullifies any of the transfer fees we spent. But it'd be interesting to see what our wage total's at. I think obviously we're charging less for memberships and stuff. Kids are going in for free, so maybe we're making less on a match. Well, we can't really be making less than a match day because we had about 9,000 in, didn't we? I don't know. It's strange. We'll have to see if we can get Kieran Maguire on, won't we, to explain it all. Price of football. Well, I might drop him a message, see if we can get him on and explain it all for us. But it's weird. Yeah, it's strange. I mean, he'll be well aware, Adrian. He'll have been made aware by the allowance about, the financial.
They keep mentioning it.
Yeah. So he must be aware of what he's doing. And if we're close to it, then you can imagine maybe we might drop our asking price of Wilkes, for example, just to start seeing it.
Yeah. I think we are in talks to sign that Watford fullback, aren't we? And Gakia, and then also that mystery number 10 midfielder. So there must be a little bit more money to spend because we want to sign permanent players. So, but I think we can't do many more. Yeah. I don't think
the Ngakia one surprised me because it's apparently a permanent. And I thought it'd be a loan.
I'm surprised they don't want him, but
it's strange because obviously we don't know what's happening with Josh Emmanuel yet, do we? Which is a shame because he'd be perfect for the system, as we keep saying. It's a shame that we don't. I mean, hopefully, whatever happens, he's getting better.
I think Louis Coyle defensively is great, but I think Emmanuel going forward, what he would have brought, just what he brings out wide, the pace, the power. That's what we're lacking. I think this is one thing that I wanted to touch on as well, is that we're lacking that pace, I think. That's why we're struggling in transition. Like in midfield, I think Slater's not quick, Seri's not quick, and Tufan's not really a quick player. And then you've got, I'd say like Longman, who's not currently playing because he's injured. I think I'd say he's quite quick. You've got a few quick players, but not.
Yes, play Longman.
But where would you play Longman, as a wing back or up top? Because we're not playing with wings.
I'd go
as a wing back. He did all right, to be fair.
3-4-3 and play him on the wing.
But if you play him as a wing back, you're playing him instead of Coyle, which I don't think is the plan, considering he's captain this season. Unless he plays on the left-hand side, but then he's a right footer, and so we've just got a similar situation. Well, I remember Longman in left wing back and Aliar up top might be something worth trying while Fleming's out. But hopefully Fleming comes back soon because that natural width would be all right.
Yeah.
I'll mention Will's comment about the Bradford game before we move on to Norwich, because he'll kill me if I forget to.
Is it just lots of swearing?
I think there's one swear word in it.
Only one.
It's better, yeah. It's better. He's improving. He basically just said Bradford pretty shite. We looked fine until the equaliser. Then they looked like they didn't want to be there. A couple of the players should probably never play for us again. In brackets, Wilkes. I think some fans acting like we're already a disaster are being absolutely idiots.
We're going down. Shot her out.
Judge after 10 games, not 3, which, is probably got a good point. And then before we move on to Norwich, he said it's going to be a tough game, but they've not been amazing yet, although it might happen eventually. Optimistically going for a 1-1 draw. So with the Norwich game, I think it's they're a relegated Premier League team. They've obviously got a lot of talent in their squads. I expect them to be up amongst the top 4, challenging the almighty promotion this season. Like we say, they've not perhaps started as well as they want to, but it's only a case, I think, of if, when, not if, that they start to find their groove, and hopefully it's not against us. So team selection wise, Tom, you're the manager. What are you doing against Norwich?
I think I'm going back to the first game, but switching Aliar. Actually, to be fair, I'd just go the same starting 11 as Bristol City, to be fair, apart from Smith out and bring Teta in.
So that's the same starting 11 as Preston, you mean?
Yeah. Same starting 11 as Preston, yeah. So I'd go with that, to be fair.
What about you, Nathaniel? You make any changes? Or?
Well, I think we'd be a whole lot better if we had Fleming, but we don't have Fleming. And Elder, yep. I can't say we'll start him because I'll get, murdered. So yeah, I guess I don't know really whether that front two. I mean, I was excited to see it, but I'm not really sure that front two of strikers really works. I'd want to get. Well, then I want to get Aliar up there with him, but then who's going to play at wing back? So yeah, I guess it just has to be the same as the last game and hope we play better at home. But because of the injuries and the players that have come back from injury aren't the players I'd start anyway. So I guess it does have to be the same, but I don't really want to say that because I don't think it'll work.
Have we got Greg Doherty back, or is he still out?
He's injured for like a few weeks, so.
Is he? Yeah, so he's going to be a miss because I thought he looked good when he came on against Bristol.
He's rapid, so I'd say I was thinking rather
as
than
good
Aliar,
because I really like Slater. It's hard, isn't it? Because Regan Slater has kind of gone under the radar so far this season. He's been very tidy on the ball.
Well, you keep mentioning him, so I don't think so.
Yeah,
very good.
A lot of Twitter mention him a lot as well. And then obviously chanting in the stand, 50 grand. Really.
Yeah.
We can't see you anymore, by the way, Tom.
I'm going to take my light on 1 minute.
Yeah, go for it. I think the team I'd go with would be the same team as... No, I would play Estepinian and...
I was waiting to do that for ages, but I was like...
I think I'd play Estepinian and Aliar up top, and I would try Randell Williams as left wing back because he's naturally left-footed, isn't he? So, he's a left footer. He plays on the right hand side.
Why haven't we done that before?
I'd back that too.
I don't know why we haven't done that before, but that's what I would do.
I think
a natural width. Williams has got a good cross on him. He had a lot of assists when he was an Exeter player in League Two, and obviously League Two level. But we need that quality of delivery now. We need somebody who can put the ball on the plate for the strikers, and we've got a bit of a variation up top in that because Aliar's quite, he's more of a maverick. He's more of a he'll run at the defence, try and create chances kind of player. And Estepinian looks a bit more of a threat in the air, hold the ball up style striker. So we've got that good balance there. If we can get the ball in from either side with Coyle and Williams, start asking some more questions defensively. I just think I want to see us have more shots. I want to see that shot tally get higher.
Go for it.
Yeah. I'm not bothered about the possession stat. I don't want to see us have 65% of the ball, but only 3 shots across 90 minutes because there's no point. Is the chances win your games, goals win your games. I'd like to see us maybe be a bit more direct. Would we take a point as a point and accept result against 100%. Norwich?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd take 4 lads. I'd take 4 points from the next 3, to be honest. And that's
you take 4 points from Saturday?
No, 4 points from the next 3 matches.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be a tough run of games.
Respectable.
Yeah, because I
even
think
3 points, to be fair, even 3 points from the next 3 games, I think that's keeps you ticking over. It's winning 2 losses, I guess. But
as long as you're not losing, you keep picking up the odd point every game or something like that. It just it helps you keep that momentum and positivity, I suppose. Performance levels, I'd like to, like we said, I think we can all agree we want to see us be a bit more attacking. Maybe shift the system a bit higher. You just because the Bradford game was just such a pain to watch. I mean, you say it was probably better that I was watching it on the telly. I was watching it at work, surrounded by Leeds fans, so it was not fun. It was not fun for me at all. It was fun when we went 1-0 up, and then as soon as we went 2-1 down, it was a very troubling experience. But I just think we still haven't seen this exciting on the front foot football that we were promised when Shotty was hired in January. Yeah. Which
against Swansea last season.
Yeah,
that's the only time we've seen it.
Sequence
for the first 20 minutes. Yeah.
That was unreal.
Like, where's that incisive fast 1-2 touch gone? Like, why? I said it last season, but we could kind of justify it by saying we didn't really have the players to play that style every season. And perhaps we do this season, and maybe, like we say, we're only 3 games in, and the season started a week earlier than usual. So maybe they are fitness behind where they need to be. Understanding of all the new signings isn't there yet, so they're not automatically knowing where each other are and being comfortable in making that pass, etc. And hopefully over the next few games, and that we start to see a bit more of an attacking, confident Hull City that can really start asking questions of the opposition defence. Shall we do score predictions then? I'll go to Tom first. Tom, what score are you saying?
1-0 loss.
1-0 loss. Okay.
Yeah, I think it'll be a narrow game, to be fair. I think
1-0, but a decent performance. Would you be all right with that?
Yeah, I think the difference between us and Norwich, I think they've got the quality off the bench. I think it'll be quite a tight game. And I think later on, they'll bring on a inspired sub and maybe get a winner. But that's what my head's saying, my heart's saying, 2-1 City. But,
Nathaniel?
Well, on the preview yesterday, Adam Harvey kept saying that Norwich have had 2 very tight games. They've conceded 2 sort of unfortunate goals from a mistake and just one kind of fluky deflection. So I think it'll be another tight game. Hopefully, I think Norwich will dominate, but I think we can maybe nick one from a set piece or something. So I'll do what I did. Not what I did last season, and change my prediction. I'm going to keep it the same from the preview. So 1-1.
1-1. Same as well. I think I'm going with... I don't think I've been right this season yet. Now I'm having to double guess myself. I think I'm going to go for a quietly confident... I'll have to go for a 1-1 draw as well. I was going to say 2-2, but I don't think we've got 2 goals on us yet. Like we say, just improved performance levels. I'd take a defeat, but where we were arguably deserving something from the game, just something to take into the next. Obviously
we play well against Norwich. That's good.
I'd also take as they have 80% possession, we have 20, and still come out with a 0-0.
Yeah. Similar to I know possession wise was a bit more thingy with Preston, but we only had something like I think
shot on target. I think.
1 shot on target, to their 14 or something. It was madness. Speaking of Matt Ingram, definitely staking a claim for that number 1 spot. If Baxter comes back,
he's classing.
It's just been phenomenal. And then obviously new signing Timothy Lotutala. Is that how you pronounce it?
Timothy.
Timothy.
Tim.
That'll do.
Not Timothy.
Big Tim.
I thought he'd start against Bradford, but we must not have signed him soon enough or something. Obviously, Robson got the nod, didn't he? I think we've pretty much covered everything then so far. There isn't anything, unless anybody watching got any comments. Either of you two got any questions or anything you wanted to cover that we haven't already?
I don't think there's much to say about this game on Saturday. I think because I think if there was players coming back, we'd have more of a selection headache, but I think it's just going to be same old, really. I think just that we're playing like how we did against Bristol City, especially second half. I think that's what I mean. I think in previous seasons we've benefited more playing away from home with the freedom on the counter attack, but I think now it's more like because we've got the players in possession that can sort of control the game. I think, and with obviously the bumper crowd as well. I think we're better. We're going to be better at home this season.
Kirsten, late viewing. Hey lads, hope you're all good. Looking forward to Saturday's game. Be interesting now. Norwich are out of the Prem, see how they perform. They've looked okay, but I don't think they've looked. I think, and I watched the preview last night. He was saying that that they're aware that they're perhaps not playing to the standards that they expect to yet. But I think the grand census of the league is that eventually it'll click for them and they'll start to go on a run. They're that classic yo-yo team, aren't they, that seem to go up to the Prem, get battered every week, but then they'll come down and win the league and just sort of steal all that money, that Premier League parachute money.
I think on paper, though, with Dean Smith, I think you'd expect him to go up, but Pukki's a year older. I think that people expecting Pukki to smash it again, but I think he's a year older now. I think he's not going to score as many goals. And that's where they're heavily relied on before. I don't think it's going to be playing sailing as it was 2 seasons ago.
Yeah, as well.
Yeah, I think they've lost that creativity there as well. I mean, they've still got like Todd Cantwell, but he's not really. He's fallen off the face of the earth a bit.
He didn't really do
So
it
I
for
think it
Bournemouth.
is. I think if one of the out of the relegated teams, I think they're the ones that I think they're. I'm going to say it now. I think they're going to finish the lowest. I think Burnley and West Brom look really good so far. Not West Brom. Burnley and Watford look really good so far.
Yeah.
I have
West
it
Brom
the other way around. I think
Yeah.
Watford will be the lowest, which is probably nonsense.
I think that's heavily reliant on if they keep Sarr, Dennis, and Joe Pedro. That's really, because they
Dennis
look
and
really
Sarr
good so
have
far.
got Dennis and Sarr have got big offers in for him, haven't they? Dennis,
Forest for
Forest,
Dennis,
and
Yeah.
Sarr.
Leeds. Yeah, well, there we go then. They probably won't keep him.
Unless they've got a very good replacements lined up. But, they're got a good mixture of good quality flair players and then the hard working grafted players like Cathcart, Cleverley that you sort of need to go up. So I think
they've got experienced players in there that eventually I think will, that experience will tell and it'll steady the ship kind of thing. Guess the attendance. It was 16,600 was it against Bristol?
Wasn't it 666?
Norwich, I think, will obviously take more away fans than Bristol did. Whether or not we take a sim, I haven't seen. I
think the attendance is going to fall off a little bit now. But I don't know.
I think really home performances, even if you're winning away, I think home performances are what people remember. So I think it'll probably still be around the same. I think we'll break 17,000 with the away fans.
I'm going to say 17,102.
Well, very specific.
7,103.
Yeah.
I'm going to say very similar. If we think the 16,000 was probably with how many memberships did we sell? Was it 13,000?
I guess about 13,500 or something like that. 14,000 maybe.
13,507 or something.
Yeah.
With them being an ex-Prem team, I think some people might want to come and see. Yeah, I'm going to say around 17,500 mark. I think
the allure of Norwich City is too much to turn
on. Yeah, everyone wants to see, team of
Ian Templeman loves a good comment, doesn't he, as well?
He does. He's a good one. Thank you for your viewership, Ian. We appreciate it.
And that Gabe Ramirez as well.
Gabe Ramirez does as well, yeah. Kirsty's back. Can't see them bouncing back up to the Prem at the end of the season. Can see a City win 1-0.
Yeah.
Which City, though?
Aliyah, I reckon 1-0. Even I said we'll lose 1-0. If anyone's going to score, it's him.
You're changing Tom's opinion now, Kirsty.
1-0 loss, I still think, but hopefully we win.
Own goal?
Yeah. I do want one of the strikers to get their first goal so they get up and running.
Oh, I'm desperate for that.
Especially Estepinian. I think Estepinian or Aliyah need to get their first goal in, get them up and running, get that momentum going. Attendance guess is Ian Templeman going to go 16,732. What's with the oddly specific ones? I won't be able to.
18 plus 1,000, Ian.
That'd be the biggest attendance we've seen in a league game for ages.
Probably like 7 years.
Whackers in on it, 17,000. Yeah, I think we're all in agreement. It'll probably be around the 17,000 mark, just because Norwich obviously are going to take a lot more away fans than Bristol will. So attendance-wise, we all better behave, considering that we're probably going to be sat near the away fans again. No supporting your team and standing up and chanting, and it's all naughty.
I bet you sit West Ham, don't you, Nathaniel? Yeah.
No, Nathaniel's East. What? Yeah.
Yes.
I
was very well behaved in E8.
Oh, so you're practically South Stand.
Yeah, I'm now E4.
Just off the halfway line.
I'll give you that. I've took me little into the only stand she hasn't sat in yet is the West Stand. We've been in the South, East, and North. I think I'll probably try and avoid the West Stand. I mean, I was practically in the West Stand for the Bristol game because it was in N1. The smell of prawn sandwiches and
caviar.
The sound of champagne corks going off. So I think we've practically covered everything we can. Everything to mention that I kind of have to at the end. So obviously the Amber Circle Facebook group, if anyone's not in it, is on the link tree. Do join. In terms of the other Facebook groups, it's certainly a lot more positive and a lot better in experience. So do join that one. Yeah, well, we all know the infamy of some of the groups. But if you're on Facebook and you want to chat about City in a better way, do ignore Nathaniel's Christmas tree. He's a bit of a weirdo. Then do join the Amber Circle. Obviously, our podcast shirts are still available to buy off the S66 merchandise store. It's the same price, £35, not including your postage and packaging. The away shirt's available too. We have the Andy's Man Club. So Rich Anderson's still doing his fundraiser where he's going to bike to Hornsey and back. I think he's nearly at £400 raised. So if anybody does want to try and jump on that and try and push that figure as close to 500 as we can get, I'll do another tweet out so you can get hold of him because he's doing it all. You won't be able to give us money for it. You've got to go direct to Rich to do it. So I'll put his details out for you to message and get involved. Obviously, Andy's Man Club, we all know, is a men's mental health charity for giving a safe space for everyone to sit down and maybe have that all needed chat that people have so desperately needed in the future, but feel like they can't. The stigma around men's mental health, biggest killer of men under the age of 45. It's okay to not be okay, is the main point of that. And then obviously we are sponsored by 6 Yards Out and the Pearson's Bar. So if any of you go to Pearson's Bar on a match day, if you go to the Norwich game pre-post match beer, tag us in a photo, have a word with Jimmy, see if he'll give you maybe a little incentive on a drink for you. Saying
a discount. Need a discount in there, don't you?
Have a word. Have a word. See what he sent you. But thanks for joining me on this episode, Tom. It's nice to have a fresh face. And thanks for joining me as always, Nathaniel. Tom, how's HCFC Hub and everything like that going? Is there anything that you want to?
We've just left it for months now. I think it's got a bit of dust on it, but I mean, I think Ben's talked about bringing it back, but he was on about doing articles and stuff. I mean, getting people to write. I mean, I tried that in the past, obviously a couple of years ago. Obviously you contributed, and so did Will, I think, and a few people did, like Ben. It would be nice to sort of have like a space where people could write. So if anyone wants to start writing city content, HCFC Hub, get at it. I think I think that's how we can resurrect it again. I think people start, writing about their opinions and stuff like that. So, yeah,
spot on. Nice comment just to end it there. Well, good show for what I was able to tune in and see. Yeah. Well, we try to go live every Thursday. It tends to be at the minute. We've got the preview shows now. We're doing a lot more this season than we used to in the past. It was just podcast episodes, but now we've got Nathaniel running the preview episodes before every game with a member of the opposition, a fan of the opposition, chatting about more in depth, obviously about the game that's coming up, and then we try to review the games that have gone on and have a brief chat about what's coming up. But yeah, we've got the email list as well. If you're not subscribed to that, where old Grandpa Joe Collins, he does some preview writing. Match reviews for us. Try and send some emails out for everybody if you signed up that. Everything's on our link tree. So if you are following us on socials, just click on link tree, have a look at what we've got. We've got quite a bit on there for you to contribute to. If you want to be part of it, let us know. We're happy to just, use our email service. If you want to write about City, you're free to do so. Just get in touch with us. But thanks for everybody for joining in again. This one, it's been a really good episode. Nearly an hour and a half. It's been an enjoyable one. Thank you. And hopefully we get another 3 points against Norwich on Saturday. Remain unbeaten in the league. That'll be quite positive considering the disaster of the Bradford game. But up the Tigers, and thanks for joining us.